And of course, the Farm Report brought to you by Wolf Enterprises, Mr. Siemens. Harry, join the show now. Harry, how
Hey,
are going with you? I know we talked before we went live here this morning. I know I talked to you on Wednesday as well. You're feeling under the weather, but today you said you're feeling a lot better. Better. How have things been going with you?
yeah, no, it's good. You don't know how sick you've been once you get better. You realize and you look back. Wow, that's is a big change. So and yeah, it's all good. And you know what? Over the last week, we've received over 3 inches of rain in various places of Manitoba. And that was the most welcomed rain. Again, we had that beautiful welcoming rain in August, and but it had dried right out. I mean, the top 30 centimeters of the soil were dry again, and so we had that rain last weekend, 2 inches, and then during the week another inch and a quarter maybe. Some other areas got more, some got less. But the only crops that are left out there right now to be harvested, some corn and some sunflowers and maybe some soybeans, and then a few other stragglers maybe. But that's it. And because of how kind of year we've had, the drought, the heat, the corn was dry. And as we talked a week ago, or a bit more than a week ago, it was unbelievable that guys were actually combining corn before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And and looking at the Manitoba Agriculture Crop Report, which comes out Tuesdays, then goes back to the previous Friday, so it would be like a week ago today. It was, for all intents and purposes, it was done, except for the acres of corn and sunflowers that still remain to be harvested. And now with the rain, it's going to take some time for that to dry up. And so, that's a real good thing. I mean, we look back now, and it's like I said, I was pretty ill, and you look forward, you look back, and you say, oh, okay, that was really bad, but I'm here. Same with the crop. When you were going through the drought and all those kinds of things, it really weighed on people how dry it was and how poorly the crop might be. Well, the crop wasn't perfect. It wasn't great. It wasn't even good in some areas, but we got a crop, and we've got good prices for the commodities. So now I think the biggest challenge farmers will have is to continue to market that grain. And some people, of course, had pre-sold some of the grain at lower prices, so they've had to deal with their contract holders on those issues. But for the most part, we're going forward. And with the rains, the pastures extended for cattle producers a little bit. But I do have a buyer beware story this morning. And it comes from a fellow by the name of Randy Kachuk. Randy and his wife farm up at Sundown, Manitoba, which is southeast of Vida, and it's towards that the U.S. border. He's a cattle producer, and he custom feeds cattle for other producers that don't have places where they can feed their cattle. He gave me a call earlier this week, and he says, Randy said he said it was interesting when he started to look at a bale of hay and another bale of hay that who he was custom feeding for. The guy had secured his own feed, had it delivered, and so Randy starts to pull this apart and start feeding the cattle. And he sees some bulrushes, he sees some flowers, and then he sees some sticks. And 60% of those bales were sticks, which the cattle cannot digest. So, and good money was paid for that feed in good faith. And so Randy gave me a call, and he said he wanted to alert other cattle producers about the fact that make sure that you're going to buy feed, and if you're going to go and look at it, don't pay anything until that feed is delivered, then pay. And then I did a search on my good friend Google, and sure enough, just another story appeared on another website in Alberta, and there the RCMP were warning. Not only were people rustling cattle, but there were scams on social media of all kinds. And the RCMP, in a one detachment in Alberta, they said there's probably $100,000 that the cattle producers were already out because they sent a down payment of 50% because they're desperate. They want the hay. And then once they sent the down payment, nothing heard or seen from the person they'd sent that money to. So in several areas, beware that the feed you're buying is what's going to be good for your cattle, despite how bad it's been in summer. But at the same time, also beware on social media that, and that's a message for all of us. But the cattle producers, desperate for feed, saw this advertisement, sent in sometimes up to $5,000, which is like half of what the feed would cost. And then once the check was cashed, so to speak, the people were nowhere to be seen, and there's no feed available for them. So they just got scammed. So that's my real, you could say that as the suggestion at the end, but at the same time, that's my major story today, because that's as Randy said. You know what? I can't believe that a fellow cattle producer would do that to another cattle producer, and so it's that kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's like stabbing his own people in the back, right? Just with
Totally.
what he did there. It's that's wild. That's a wild story. There's that story about the scam there. But in terms of talking about market prices, just in terms of, can farmers set their own market price, or
No.
what goes into that?
No, you know what? I should say yes and no. Number one, farmers are price takers. Farmers do not set a price. The farmer is at the end of the chain, right? So they basically get for their crop. But if a company needs the kind of crop that farmer has, and they already have a market for it, then the farmer will get more. So last fall, in spring, the prices were going up, and so you can lock in a price. You can say the price started at $10 a bushel, and then it went to 12, then it went to 15, and people started to lock in and say, wow, 10 would be average, 12 is pretty good, 15 is already a great price. Well, then it popped right up to 20, and so the catch here is some of the farmers that locked in at $15, all of a sudden didn't have a crop. They didn't have enough crop to fill the contract. So that's where the real issue comes in, and that's we've talked about it before. So now some of those farmers will say, well, waive my contract. Well, no, the company cannot waive the contract because they're also having to speak for the crop that they sold down the road. So you have a farmer in southern Manitoba selling his canola to a grain buyer. The grain buyer sells to a company, and the company sells to China, so to speak. And so the Chinese want that crop. They also locked in a price. And so that's where you cannot set your price. You can lock in a price that you think you're comfortable with. And for the most part, farmers always got crops. Well, this year, some of those farmers didn't get the crop, and so they had to go chase. Where they locked it in for 15, they had to go and pay 20 in order to fill that contract for 15. So it becomes quite an issue, and as some people have said, I've talked to a number of people, is talk to your, don't go and make a big deal about it somewhere else. Talk to your grain buyer, to the company, and see what it is you can come up with.
Talking about the rain we got now, obviously rain at any time of the year is welcome. Would have been nice to get more sooner in the year, but it's just the way it is, right? But just to see this rain now, to see how much rain we've been getting in the past week has been nice to see. Talk about the effects that this rain is going to have moving forward for farmers at this point of the year.
Well, the thing I always tell farmers and anybody else that is either concerned not enough rain or got too much rain, you said, you know what, if we were in charge of that rain, we'd mess it up too. But but at the same time, it's just a real blessing on many fronts. Number one, it's so good to bring up the hope and the spirit for next year. When you start to fill up, that soil that was so dry, and back in July we thought we would never get rain. It seemed like we would have a drought forever. So we had 4, 5, 6 inches in August, and it was dry. It didn't take long, and it was gone. And then it got dry again. And so now we get another 3, 4, 5 inches, whatever people got. And it does, number one, it replenishes the subsoil. It starts to fill up some of the dugouts that were dry for almost a year. And it made it so much more pliable as far as the soil is concerned. And a lot of places, farmers like to get some green growth in fall. And when it's dry, you don't get green growth. Well, we got green growth. In fact, we got green growth in crops that were still left out there to be harvested. So they had to also deal with that. But you know what? It's a win-win-win-win situation all the way around, because when the atmosphere is normal with the right amount of rain, it just seems to perk everybody up. Yeah, I know there's people that wanted to go to the cottage another weekend or do whatever it is, and they got rained out. You know what? Tough. But at the same time, the guys that are out there growing our food, they are more than happy with the rainfalls we got.
Yeah, I bet. The rain, welcome any time of the year, especially this year with how
Totally.
dry it's been. And yeah, it's just great to see the rain we've been getting this past week for sure. And hopefully it keeps up. As nice as it is to see sunny weather, wouldn't mind more rain, because it is still dry in many places here in
Yeah, it
Manitoba.
is. You're right. We could keep raining.
Yeah, for sure. Rain, like I said, welcome anytime here right now in the province of Manitoba. But Harry, got to end off with this. Talked about it a bit early on in this interview, hinting that this will probably be your tip of the week. But I want to know truly what Harry Siemens' farming tip of the week is for farmers here on Siemens Says.
For the grain and special crops farmers, you know what? Check, as I think I said it last week, and I don't think I can say it enough. This grain is so expensive. It's got such a high value. When you put it in the bin, make sure that it's dry and you're watching it so it doesn't spoil on you. Once it spoils, it's worth nothing. Then it just becomes for the dump. And so that's tip number one. Tip number two is the story that I shared with Randy Kapchuk from Sundown, Manitoba. Beware, buyer beware. And this isn't putting a bad light on all cattle producers. Not at all. We're just telling farmers to beware of what feed you're buying, because you're paying money that is tough to come by, and you want to make sure your cattle get the best source of feed possible. So beware. Make sure beforehand that you see the feed, that you take delivery of the feed, and then you pay. And then from there on, you go ahead. That's the tip of 2 tips, 3 tips. How many tips of the week?
Yeah, some great tips from Harry Siemens on this Friday morning here on Rise and Shine Manitoba. And yeah, I think to sum up your point, don't let one bad apple ruin the whole bunch, right?
Yeah, you bet.
Beware of those scam artists out there, folks. And like Harry said, go check out the feed for yourself, because, in my opinion, seeing it to believe it is better than anything out there, right? So, Harry, thanks for coming on this Friday morning. Can't wait